Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from SABA Satellite Channel from Marib. Here are tonight's top stories. President Al-Alimi calls for unity, reform, and renewed state projects. President Al-Alimi receives congratulatory cables from world leaders on Yemen's National Day. PLC member Tariq Saleh launches Saudi-funded development projects on the West Coast. On the 36th National Day of the Republic of Yemen, President Al-Alimi delivered a national address focused on unity, justice, state-building, reforms, and the path toward peace and recovery. He described Yemeni unity as a great national and humanitarian dream, while acknowledging the injustices and deviations that later affected the project of the partnership and equal citizenship.
I address you at a defining moment in Yemen's modern history, a moment that requires all of us to have the courage to speak the truth rather than evade it, the courage to be fair rather than obstinate, and the courage to build the future rather than remain captive to the wounds and conflicts of the past. For successive generations of our people, Yemeni unity was a great dream and a noble national and humanitarian project. It was embraced by the people of the South and the North alike, with sincerity and conviction, as a path toward the state of institutions, justice, partnership, and equal citizenship. Yet, the truth that must not be denied is that this project was later subjected to serious deviations that produced deep grievances, from exclusion and marginalization to damage inflicted on the very national partnership upon which unity was originally founded. Therefore, it is the duty of the state, and our moral and national duty before it is a political one, to affirm that doing justice to the Southern cause, providing reparations, addressing the consequences of the past, ensuring fair partnership in power and wealth, and enable all Yemenis to freely express their aspirations and determine their political, economic, and cultural future will remain a firm and reversible commitment. Because we believe in this out of conviction and responsibility, we have never viewed the Southern cause as a security problem, but rather as the essence of any just settlement and one of the key foundations for building sustainable peace and a stable state.
A new strategy for leading the state consistent of 6 points.
انقضى عقد كامل منذ الإعلان عن تحرير العاصمة المؤقتة عدن.
A full decade has passed since the liberation of the interim capital Aden and the governance that followed. That period was filled with inspiring moments of victory against the Houthi militia as well as extremist and terrorist groups. Yet, it was also burdened by the reality of internal division and by clear signs of stumbling in building a model that meets the aspirations of our people. On this basis, we have reassessed our strategic approach to leading the states and decided to act according to an inclusive national vision based on the following guiding principles. First, to continue sincere efforts to restore state institutions, consolidate the republican system across all Yemeni territory, and end the coup of the terrorist Houthi militias by all available means. Second, to focus on building state institutions in the liberated governance, completing the economic reform program, and strengthening mechanisms of governance and anti-corruption. Third, to maintain a firm commitment to just solutions to the Southern cause through peaceful dialogue and to ensure its representation in any future tracks of the political settlement. Fourth, to strengthen relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, moving them from close alliance to a comprehensive strategic partnership, and to pursue the gradual integration of Yemen into the Gulf system. Fifth, to move forward with unifying security and military decision-making, strengthening efforts to combat terrorism, smuggling, and organized crime, and drying up their sources and channels of financing. Sixth, to enhance the role of local authorities and and enable them to exercise their full powers in integration and close coordination with the central government and the higher institutions.
He also stressed the collective awareness of the unity of Yemeni people and their one faith.
What we need today is not broad slogans, but a collective awareness that the fate of Yemenis is one, that no one will survive the collapse of the state, and that when militia chaos expands, it doesn't distinguish between one citizen and another, or between one region and another. Therefore, all of us must rise above our internal differences, recognize the scales of the challenges and conspiracies targeting our homeland and our national cause, and avoid once again drifting away from the realization of our...
Al-Alimi also welcomed the recent agreement to release 8,750 detainees, describing it as an important humanitarian step toward reuniting families and closing this painful file.
Our great Yemeni people, amid this suffering caused by the terrorist Houthi militias backed by the Iranian regime, the humanitarian duty toward our people remains above all considerations. Our moral responsibility is to seize every opportunity that elevate the suffering of citizens and restore hope to families exhausted by war, loss, and waiting. This is why the recent agreement to release 1,750 detainees, abductees, and forcibly disappeared persons came as an important humanitarian step, reflecting what can be achieved when people's interests prevail over all other calculations. The state and the government have made responsible concessions to ensure the success of this file, out of our conviction that the suffering of Yemenis must not remain hostage to war, and that reuniting families and returning fathers and sons to their loved ones is the victory for human dignity.
The president also reaffirmed the state's willingness for peace according to the three references for a political solution.
As we congratulate these families on their moment of joy after long years of painful separation, we express our sincere appreciation for the dedicated role played by our brothers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, our regional and international partners, and all parties that contributed with sincerity and responsibility to the achievement of this humanitarian agreement. In this context, we reaffirm our full commitment to continuing work for the release of all detainees, abductees, and forcibly disappeared persons held in the prisons of the terrorist Houthi militias, and to comprehensively closing this humanitarian file. The state we seek is not a state of revenge, but a state of justice and fairness, one that preserves human dignity and safeguards the right to freedom, life.
He assured the Yemeni people that the state is taking major steps of reforms and thanked Saudi's support for the Yemeni government and people.
The recent phase has witnessed important transformations that can be built upon, whether in terms of strengthening institutional coordination, unifying security and military decision-making, improving the performance of local authorities, or enhancing the readiness of state institutions at all levels. Today, we also stand before a historic opportunity that may not be repeated. After years of waiting, attrition, and complications, there is now an unprecedented regional and international realization that Yemen's stability is not only a Yemeni interest, but necessity for the security of the region and the world. Our brothers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the leadership of King Salman bin Abdulaziz and His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman have played pivotal role in achieving these transformations through their strong commitment, continuing support for Yemen, defending its state, standing by its people, working sincerely to end the war, improving the efficiency of the economy and services, and advancing reforms and promising partnership.
President Rashid Al-Alimi received congratulatory messages from a number of world leaders on the occasion of the 36th National Day of Yemen, May 22nd. Messages were sent by custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, and Crown Prince and Prime Minister Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who extended wishes for Yemen's security and stability. President Al-Alimi also received congratulations from Sultan Haytham bin Tariq of Oman, King Mohammed VI of Morocco, Russian President Vladimir Putin, Emperor Naruhito of Japan, and Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara. The leaders expressed wishes for President Al-Alimi's health and success, and for the Yemeni people's peace, stability, progress, and prosperity. The messages also reflected the depth of Yemen's bilateral relations with brotherly and friendly countries and their shared interest in strengthening cooperation in various fields. Member of the Presidential Leadership Council Abdullah Al-Alimi met with Prime Minister Shaya Zindani to discuss economic and service developments and government efforts to implement financial and administrative reforms. Al-Alimi was briefed on measures taken by the government to address economic and living conditions, improve public spending, strengthen revenues, activate oversight bodies, and promote transparency in governance. He praised recent government decisions, including the cost of living allowance for state employees, payment of delayed annual bonuses, settlement of employment adjustments, and steps to activate the High Tender Committee. Al-Alimi affirmed the Presidential Leadership Council's support for these reforms, described them as an important step toward protecting the national economy, improving services, paying salaries, controlling public resources, and reducing wastes. Member of the Presidential Leadership Council Tariq Saleh inaugurated work to complete several development projects and laid the foundation stone for new projects on the West Coast, with support from Saudi Arabia through the Saudi Development and Reconstruction Program for Yemen. The launch coincides with celebrations marking the 36th National Day of the Republic of Yemen. Tariq Saleh congratulated the people of Taiz and the liberated West Coast districts on these projects. He said completing the marine docks on Hanaish and Zuqar Islands will support the safety and security of international navigation in the sea. Minister of Public Health and Population Qasim Buhaybih met today in Geneva with Syrian Minister of Health Musab Al-Ali on the sidelines of the 79th World Health Assembly in Switzerland. The two ministers discussed coordination in primary health care, epidemic control, communicable diseases, medical and technical capacity building, and the exchange of expertise in health training and qualification. They also reviewed the possibility of signing a memorandum of understanding in the health sector, including cooperation in the pharmaceutical industries and technical expertise exchange. The discussions touched on issues listed on the agenda of the World Health Assembly, as well as challenges facing health systems in the region and ways to support recovery and improve health services. Buhaybih stressed the importance of stronger Arab health cooperation to confront common challenges, while the Syrian minister affirmed his country's keenness to expand coordination with Yemen in health-related fields. Minister Qasim Buhaybih also met in Geneva with representatives of the World Bank Group to discuss strengthening cooperation in support of Yemen's health sector. The discussions reviewed existing cooperation under previous World Bank projects, as well as the ongoing health, nutrition, water, and sanitation project in Yemen. The meeting also highlighted achievements made in the health sector despite current challenges, and reviewed future steps to ensure the sustainability of the health system and improve access to integrated and equitable services across the governorates. Both sides agreed on key priorities, including supporting health sector resilience and recovery, strengthening primary health care, sustaining health financing, and building the capacity of health workers in prevention, early detection, and management of non-communicable diseases. Minister of Endowment and Guidance Turki Al-Wadi met today in Jeddah with Saudi Minister of Islamic Affairs, Dawah and Guidance Abdul Latif Al-Sheikh to discuss strengthening cooperation and coordination in religious guidance and awareness programs. Al-Wadi praised Saudi Arabia's continued support for Yemen in various fields, including efforts to help overcome challenges and support security and stability. He also commended the kingdom's major services for pilgrims and Umrah performers arriving from around the world, and its wider role in serving Islam and Muslims. Al-Wadi affirmed the ministry's keenness to benefit from Saudi experience in religious guidance, awareness programs, and services provided to pilgrims and visitors. For his part, the Saudi minister reaffirmed the kingdom's commitment to supporting Yemen and its people and to backing efforts that contribute to Yemen's security, stability, and unity. Also in Aden, Minister of State for Women's Affairs Ahdi Asus met today with representatives of the Women's Summits to review the outcomes of the first round through the 8th Summit held in September 2025. The meeting discussed ways to leverage these outcomes to support women's issues and empowerment across different fields. Jasu said the ministry is working to integrate women into its plans and government programs, noting that the recommendations of the 8th Summit and Aden Declaration reflect Yemeni women's efforts to identify challenges and propose practical solutions. She also said the ministry seeks to expand women's participation in peace and decision-making files to at least 30%, facilitate the work of women's organizations, and coordinate with the donors to ensure direct support for field initiatives. In a related meeting, Jasus met with a number of businesswomen to discuss women's economic empowerment, financing, training, capacity building, and a stronger partnership with private sector. Deputy Interior Minister of Security and Police Major General Mohammed Al-Amir met today in Aden with Anthony Hayward, military advisor to the UN Special Envoy for Yemen, and his accompanying delegation. The meeting discussed security developments in Yemen and the Interior Ministry's efforts to strengthen security, stability, and unified security decision-making in the liberated governorates. Al-Amir said security agencies have achieved important successes in combating terrorism and organized crime, including operations that dismantle terrorist cells and foiled plots aimed at destabilizing Aden. Al-Amir warned that the Houthi militia remains the main threat to security in Yemen and the region, pointing to its attacks on civilians, threats to international navigations, and coordination with terrorist organizations. For his part, Hayward affirmed the United Nations' continued interest in security developments and its efforts to support a comprehensive and sustainable political settlement. First Deputy Governor of Taiz, Abdul Qawi Al-Mikhlafi, met today with David Nantu, Development Cooperation Office at the German Embassy to Yemen, to discuss cooperation in German-supported interventions in key sectors, particularly agriculture and water. Al-Mikhlafi praised Germany's support and active presence in Taiz, calling for stronger cooperation to support the local authorities' economic and social plan, especially for urgent priorities. He reviewed the damage caused by the war and climate change, as well as promising opportunities in the governorate, particularly in food security. The German official said the visit aims to assess conditions in Taiz, including war damage to historical and cultural sites, and to review possible interventions in agriculture and water. The meeting also discussed urgent needs, including water resources, food security, and expanded partnership with donors. That was the news bulletin from SABA Satellite Channel. Thank you for watching and have a good time.